Good morning. Good morning. This is Valerie Leonard. I am the founder of Nonprofit Utopia, and I want to welcome you to this morning's live stream. We are focusing this whole month of August on strategic planning. And today we're going to talk about setting goals and objectives and all that good stuff. And before I get started, as usual, I want to tell you a little bit about Nonprofit Utopia. We are the ideal community for emerging nonprofit leaders. We intend to train 50,000 people between now and 2033 on a number of issues surrounding nonprofit management and how to start your own organization. And a little bit about myself. I have been at this for 2 years with Nonprofit Utopia, but I've been consulting with nonprofits since about 2003, focusing on a number of issues around community and organizational development. But I won't bore you with that. If you want to learn more about us, feel free to visit us at nonprofitutopia.com. And if you want to join us, you can join us at nonprofitutopia.mn.co. I have attached here our QR code here. And if you point your phone here, you can get access to my business card. And then we have a link for you to join at the bottom of the screen. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. It's just me today. I didn't have time to get the Zoom link out, and I do apologize for that. So as a result, I'm not going to be able to see any questions or comments until I'm done. So if you're watching from Facebook Live, if you're watching from Periscope, if you're watching from YouTube Live or any of the 13 live streaming services that we're working with, please feel free to leave any comments, any questions, and I'll get back to you just as soon as possible. All right, you take care. And without further ado, I am going to pull up, well, I'm going to share our screen and then I'll pull up the presentation. Alrighty, so today we're going to be focusing on how to develop goals and objectives and strategies, and then also show you how to measure them. And then we're also going to be sharing some of the tools that you can use to do that, do it on your own. All right, so just to give you a little bit of a refresher, when we first started, we focused on the community needs assessment, because in order for any strategic planning process to really make sense, you really need to understand what's going on in the community, and you need to also understand your own ability to be able to focus and address those needs. After that, we focused on the theory of change, which takes into account what's going on into the community, and then using the information that you have gathered from your community needs assessment to actually, brainstorming ideas as to what you think could work based on what the evidence is telling you. And then after that, we focused on assessing the organizational stakeholders. And as we mentioned before, any stakeholders as an organization starts with the organization itself. So you need to do a needs assessment within your own organization or capacity assessment. And depending on the scope of the strategic planning process, that will determine the scope of your assessment. If you want to do a broad organizational-wide strategic plan where you're focusing on a number of different issues, then I would suggest that you assess the entire organization on a number of factors. And I'm not going to go into detail about that because we already have that on a video that you can check out on YouTube. In fact, you can check out those 3 videos on YouTube: the Community Needs Assessment, Theory of Change, and Assessing Organizational Stakeholders. And once you do your assessment of stakeholders, then you assess your strengths and weaknesses to be able to meet the needs in the community. And really, we didn't focus so much on the negative parts. We didn't focus on the community as a deficit. We focused on the community as having many assets. All right. And then our last session, we talked about the mission, vision, and statement of core values and shared with you strategies as to how you can develop all three of those statements. And again, I'm not going to go into so much detail about those processes, as you can go to YouTube and listen for yourself. All right, so just very briefly, we spoke about the mission statement being your why you do what you do, and letting us know, who you plan to serve and how. And then we talked about the vision statement and how that is an ideal world, as what the world is going to look like, or what's going to happen for your clients, or what's going to happen for your community as a result of your interventions. And then we talked about how you can develop your core values, and we gave a definition of those core values. And core values are those things that are very, very important to you as an individual, important to the organization, and they color the culture of the organization, how the organization makes decisions, what products, what services that they're going to provide, what programs they're going to provide, and the like. And again, we shared with you tools as to how you can craft those statements, and you can find those videos on YouTube. Alrighty, so if you can just bear with me, I am having a problem. I need to plug up my computer, and I believe my plug is in a different room, and I'm getting a signal that my computer is about to go dead. And before it goes dead, I want to sign out of here. And if you can just bear with me, I'll be back in about 2 minutes. I need to go and get my, I need to go and plug up my computer. All right, so forgive me. Just one moment. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back now, and I again apologize for that. I will get back to our presentation. Just one moment. Alrighty, so we want to talk about goals and objectives, strategies and tactics, and then walk with you, give you some examples and show you how you can do this for yourself. All right, so basically a goal is what you'd like to accomplish, is the big idea. And, it's the big picture, right? And the goals are supported by measurable objectives. You can have, some people like to just write goals, but I encourage my clients to write SMART goals, and we'll show you an example in the next slide. And yeah, so I'm going to repeat this, because you didn't have a chance to see the large picture, no pun intended. Again, the goals are the big picture. They're what you want to accomplish. And in an ideal sense, you want to do SMART goals. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. But here is an example of a goal being used as a broad statement. And I'm going to use, for all examples, they'll come from K&B Communications, just so we can be consistent from goals to objectives to strategies and tactics. All right. So an example is one, to make XYZ medical device the preferred device of podiatric, forgive me, foot doctors in diagnosing and treating foot conditions. Alrighty, so SMART goals, they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And I got this graphic from vComply. So a way for you to think about your SMART goals as you're developing them is, one, think about how specific it is. What exactly do you want to do? And then you ask yourself, is it measurable? How will you know when you have achieve success, and what are those indicators or measurements you're going to use to show how close you are or how far away you are from achieving that goal? And then achievable. Achievable means different things for different people, and that's going to vary by, one, whether or not what sector you're in, whether you are a large institution or if you're just starting out. So you need to look within your own capacity, and ideally before you get to the goals and objective process, you would have done some self-exploration and some assessments to determine what the organization's capacity is, so you can know what's realistic, what's achievable based on your own capacity. So is it in your power to accomplish it? Again, that's going to be different for different people. And realistic, that's very, very similar. I mean, given your capacity, is it realistic that your organization can achieve this goal? And timely, you want to put a deadline on it. So ideally, your deadline is going to be somewhere within the horizon of your strategic plan. So it could be, somewhere sooner, but you want to make sure that all of your goals and objectives can be accomplished within the time period of your plan. And generally speaking, most strategic plans these days are for 3 years. And really, it's difficult, given all the change in the world, for you to say that 3 years is it, because who would have guessed that we would be in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic right about now. So most strategic plans, at least the tactics of those plans, are probably out of the window right now, just because most of us are shut in and we didn't anticipate that. So before we go on to the SMART goals, so that is a real good reason for you to always revisit your strategic plan in the monitoring phase. And we'll talk about that on Friday. But you should always monitor your plan to make sure that it's still relevant given what's going on in the community or whatever your service area. So here's an example of a SMART goal. And this SMART goal is actually not from K&B Communications, but it's from Rising Tide. So for example, this says, one SMART goal for an aspiring restaurant owner who has spent years perfecting his or her trade and is now ready to venture off on his own may look like this. By January 15, 2018, I want to have developed and tested. And for example, he wants friends and family to test it and give rating on a 1 to 10 scale, 5 sample items on the menu. So you can see that's very, very specific, and it's probably more specific than most, but he has measurements, because he can tell you how many people or how many items he wanted to have tested. It's achievable because he's a solo entrepreneur and he can reach out to his family and friends to have them actually give a rating, and that is also giving him another measurement. And the 5 sample items, that's giving him a measurement. All right. And then it's also achievable because we would hope that as a restaurant owner, he can cook at least 5 different items. it is realistic, right? Because, again, this is a very small scale test, and he has a time frame within which he wants to do it. And some people look at R as relevant. This is very relevant to a restaurant owner. A restaurant owner wants to have a really good sense for whether or not people will in fact eat eat his food and they'll like it, right? So um, so this is very, very important. It's a good test for him. So going back to objectives, objectives are basically how you're going to achieve your goals, right? So they're a low level description of the specific and measurable outcomes desired from a project. And in this case, the project is the strategic plan. And activities and most likely deliverables will contribute to achieving the objective. And really, you want to make sure that you're achieving the goal. So everything starts with the large goal, and then the objectives have to support the goal, and then the strategies will support the objectives. So in this case, again, the objectives are telling you how you're going to achieve those goals, and they're timely, right? So in this case, going to the foot doctors. So we're going to see an increase in awareness and use of XYZ's podiatric device by 20%. So that's very, very specific. It's giving you a magnitude of change. It's telling you what is going to happen. They want to deliver a 20% year-to-year increase in sales of the device between 2016 and 2017. And they also want to decrease the number of device malfunction incidences by 10% in 2016. So in this instance, they have a combination of what we call outcome objectives as well as process objectives. The outcome objectives tells us what's going to change. The process objectives tells us, really kind of the nuts and bolts of how it's going to change, and it's more operational in nature. So this first objective, increase awareness or use of XYZ's podiatric device by 20%, that can be seen as an outcome objective, because in that case, you see that there is a change in the learning. There's a change in the knowledge. So increase awareness, they're increasing use, so they're using it. People who didn't use it are now using it, so there's a change. The second one, deliver a 20% year-to-year increase in sales of the device between 2016 and 2017. That is more operational in nature, so that is more of a process. And then 2, decrease the number of device malfunction incidents by 10% in 2016. Again, that focuses more on operations and making sure that you have, devices that in fact work properly. Alrighty, so the next thing we're going to focus on is strategies. So remember, you have goals, which are the big picture of what you're really trying to achieve, and really that needs to be also in support of your mission, vision, and core values. And then you have your objectives, which help you to reach your goals. And then your strategies are going to be a method of reaching your objectives. And sometimes people put objectives under the strategies. I've seen it used interchangeably in terms of the order. So basically the strategies are going to be how you're going to get those results. And notice too, this is all at the organizational level. So this is very high level. This process needs to occur before you even talk about developing programs. So you need to have your strategic plan in place before you get to the operations and the programs. So the strategies are going to inform your actual program development. So the strategies could answer the question, how do we accomplish our objectives? And strategies can define a general approach or method, whereas tactics describe specific activities. So these are some examples of strategies. And again, this is from K&B Communications. Educate current and potential podiatric physicians on the benefits of using XYZ device for patients and practitioners to generate awareness among our primary target. And then another strategy is outreach to trade and social media with information on the product and its benefits to maximize interest among potential customers and the industry at large. And if you have any questions or comments, please fill those out on Facebook, on YouTube, Periscope, or any of the streaming outlets, and I will respond to those as soon as I can. Alrighty, and the next thing we want to talk about is tactics. And tactics are basically, in a nutshell, how you're going to actually operationalize your strategies. So there's specific activities that will be implemented to meet your objectives and execute your strategies. And examples include one, these doctors can develop educational materials, including product brochure, video, and fact sheet, that goes to them wanting to increase awareness of this product. They can obtain lists of board certified podiatrists in the US and medical schools with the podiatric medicine specialty. And then they can send educational materials to podiatric trade publications or websites and bloggers specializing in podiatric medicine. And then we want to figure out, or we want a way of measuring our progress towards our goals, right? And in this case, we're not talking about programs. We're talking about strategy at the organizational level, not at the department level, not at the program level. This is all focusing on big picture stuff. And by the time you finish this, you'll be well prepared to drill down to the next level, which will be program development. And that's beyond the scope of what we're covering in August. We're just focusing now on developing strategies. So when we talk about metrics and KPIs, this is more operational in nature and not necessarily programmatic in nature. So when we talk about programs, we typically talk about outcomes and what's going to change for our clients, what's going to change for our communities. Now, in some cases, there may be some overlap, but generally speaking, your KPIs are more operational in nature and they're at a higher level than at the program level. But when you develop your programs, you want to make sure that the goals and objectives and any interventions that you have within that program are in alignment with the strategic plan. So metrics and key performance indicators measure the progress towards the goals and objectives. The goals and objectives of your strategic plan, not the goals and objectives of your program, although the goals and objectives from your program, some of them could be the same, but they also need to be complementary and they will be in alignment with the goals and objectives and KPIs at the strategy level, the organizational level. So for this example, with the doctors who wanted to increase awareness and knowledge of that device, we're going to look at things like the number of doctors using the podiatric device. We're going to look at the number of devices actually sold, the total revenue generated from the sale of the devices, the number of device malfunctions, the number of customer service complaints, and the number of satisfied customers. And this example, this is for a hospital, and most hospitals tend to be nonprofit, but you can adapt these KPIs for any nonprofit venture that you're involved in, for housing, social services, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and here is an example of a flow chart that, just summarizes everything. Ideally, again, you would have started with, looking at what's going on in the community, developing your theory of change, and really understanding who your customers are. So doing an assessment of your customers and your clients, as well as your organization, and given that, then and your SWOT analysis, given that, you develop your goals and your objectives, right? And then after that, you develop your strategies. And then, and then after that, you look at your measurements, and then you develop your action plan. And your action plan is going to indicate all of those activities that are necessary to fulfill those goals, those objectives, those strategies. It's going to give accountability. So it's going to tell who is responsible for those activities and when. Okay. So before I share with you two worksheets, I just want to let you know that if you have any questions, you can email me at valerie.leonard@nonprofitutopia.com. And if you are a member of Nonprofit Utopia, you can post any questions that you might have. I'm going to be posting this video in our forum, and you can feel free to share any comments and experiences that you might have. All right. Again, if you want to join us, you can go to nonprofitutopia.mn.co. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And if you can give me a moment, I wanted to share with you a couple examples. All right, now this is a tool that was developed by Smartsheet, and I think it's a really good tool. It helps you. Okay, I stopped sharing it by accident. Just bear with me. All right, it helps you to really think through your process. So it's really meant to be a brainstorming sheet. So you'll start off with your initial goal, and then you'll answer a series of questions that will help you to tweak this initial goal. So you start with the goal that you have in mind, and then you check your goal. So what do you want to accomplish? Who needs to be included? When do you want to do this? And why is this a goal? Under measurable, you want to look at how can you measure progress and know that you've successfully met your goal? And then for achievable, do you have the skills required to achieve the goal? If not, can you obtain them? What is the motivation for this goal? Is the amount of effort required on par with what the goal will achieve? And then in this case, some people use realistic, other people use relevant. In this case, the R is for relevant. And you have to ask yourselves as a group, again, this is not something you do as a solo exercise. This is something that you want to do with all of the stakeholders for your organization in the room. So that's board members, staff, clients, or select clients, because you can't get everybody in the room, potential partners, and sometimes funders, depending on how they feel about it, and anybody who's going to be impacted, right? So you ask yourselves as a group, why am I setting this goal? Is it aligned with our overall objectives? And then time bound, what's the deadline? And is it realistic? And then after you answer all of those questions, you have enough information to kind of tweak your goal. All right, so you review what you've written and craft a new goal statement based on the answers to the questions. All right, and that can really be a day-long process. It really takes a lot of time. All right, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen and then share another document before we go. All right, and again, this is from Smartsheet, and this helps you work through your project goals and objectives. And in this case, the project is the strategic plan. All right, so you fill out the project name, when it was created, then you put the project manager's name. So this is a way of assigning accountability. And then here, you want to test your goals and objectives against SMART criteria. Are they specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound? Time-bound meaning, is there an expiration date? Is there a deadline? So you want to make your goal statement. And again, your goals should be SMART. And then your objective is going to support that larger goal, or you might have several goals. So in this case, an example, an objective should look like this. The objective is to increase the native plants between 1st and 2nd Streets by 50% by March 31st. So they're telling you exactly what they want to have done, and it's telling you, I guess, the geography. So we're assuming that they've already assessed their capabilities and they have the ability to reach, that specific geography between 1st and 3rd Streets. And the magnitude of the change is going to be 50%. And then it's going to happen by March 31st. So we can assume, okay, the 50% magnitude change, that is letting you know that is measurable. And we're assuming too that this is an organization that focuses on gardening. So we would assume that this is relevant to them. All right. So that concludes my presentation. And again, I'm so sorry that I did not get the Zoom link to you so that you could join me here and ask me questions live and I could respond to them. So I'm going to look at your responses and questions on Facebook Live. I'm going to look at your responses to what we have on YouTube and Periscope, etc. All righty. So I thank you, and without further ado, I am going to sign off now. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.